Yujikuna or Megumikuna, or in other words, Yuji possessed by Sukuna or Megumi possessed by Sukuna. Which version of Sukuna is the best and definitive version of Sukuna for the Jujutsu Kaisen story? Sukuna took over Megumi's body from chapter 212, so it's almost unfair to compare considering Sukuna was inside of Yuji's body for majority of the story. However, having said that, Sukuna, whilst he is in possession of Megumi's body for a shorter period of time, he did have that big main event fight against Gojo, and he doesn't have Megumi placing him in a cage within his body. He is literally a free man, or curse shall I say, now that he is in Megumi's body. Whilst in Yuji's body, he was trapped. He barely took over his body, and there were times where Yuji even requested for him to take over, and he still wouldn't do it, just to mess with Yuji even more, as I've made a video previously listing out all the times Sukuna has screwed over Yuji, so do go and check that video out if you haven't already. So even though he was in Yuji's body for a majority of the story, he never took over his body to the way that he has done with Megumi. This might be a controversial take from your tribal chief, and let's put all the memes to one side with Sukuna and Mahoraga. I don't know guys, I don't find Sukuna as threatening in Megumi's body as he was in Yuji's body. Now that Sukuna is fully released and doesn't have a time limit like how Yuji would regain control of his body against Sukuna, I feel that may have reduced the fear factor of Sukuna. The whole point of Sukuna having a time limit on Yuji's body was that he was basically a ticking time bomb when he's released. When he's released, you know he's about to do something crazy. I'll be honest, for me the best parts of the story and the moments I am most hyped for is when Sukuna gets released in Yuji's body and goes on a mad rampage. Jogo feeds Yuji 10 fingers of Sukuna, which in total added up to 15-fingered powered Sukuna. And as soon as Yuji ate those fingers, Sukuna gets released. And immediately he starts his slaughter, ripping people's heads off for fun and enjoying the pain he's causing. Jogo, a special graded curse, even he commented saying how Sukuna's power is overwhelmingly evil. Imagine that. A fellow evil special grade curse who is one of the strongest of its kind is calling Sukuna's power overwhelmingly evil. That is hype. He then ends up defeating Mahoraga and massacres hundreds of innocent civilians in Shibuya. When he got released previously, it was against the cursed room, where we see Sukuna dominate the fight with such ease as well, which is then followed up with his fight against Megumi, where the seeds were planted for him to eventually take over his body and to use the 10 shadow techniques against Gojo. Even before he took over Megumi's body, in the very same chapter that he did, he took over Yuji's body with N-Chain, which eventually led to him taking over Megumi's body at the end of the chapter. This is what I mean. Every time Sukuna takes over Yuji's body, he does something crazy, which is why I say his moments when he does appear in the story is the most entertaining and most fun to watch and read. But with Sukuna now being inside of Megumi's body and is permanently out, to be free, I feel as though the same excitement that I had when Sukuna would get released in Yuji's body has decreased a lot. Okay, so let me address the big elephant in the room when it comes to the Sukuna vs Gojo fight. In chapter 233, Sukuna had himself, Mahoraga and Agito fight off against Gojo, where Gojo even calls out Sukuna and says that he looks like a lost alien, which is most likely an ET reference, but that imagery has spawned 1,000 memes with Sukuna, which led to the allegations that Sukuna is a fraud. Yes, he is having Agito and Mahoraga assist him, but look what he says to Gojo. It's not a 2 against 1, it's a 3 against 1. I like this from Sukuna. It doesn't mean that he's a fraud, it just means that he will do whatever it takes to win. And let me remind you, Sukuna has been planning to use the 10 shadows for a long time now, ever since he fought Megumi for the first time all the way back in episode 5 of the first season. So the seeds were planted already back then, so you can use that against Sukuna for him using the 10 shadows in this fight against Gojo, but that's the whole technique. It's for him to use the Shikigamis. Now, I know the whole romance of the fight is for both characters to fight one-on-one with no interruptions or any underhanded tactics, but Sukuna is the fallen. He is the disgraced one, and is one of the main villains of the story. Do you honestly think Sukuna will be an honorable fighter like how Kaido ended up being an honorable fighter in his fight against Luffy? No, of course not. He is the king of all curses. He should live up to that name by being sneaky, sly, and using all the dirty tactics he can against Gojo. That's my take on the whole him using Mahoraga against Gojo, which, like I said, I don't have much problem with. He's just using the 10 shadow techniques to his full advantage, but what I do find an issue issue is him getting clowned and teased by Gojo. Now, Gojo is the strongest, so he has that luxury to take the piss out of any character and not to face any hardcore backlash against the comments that he's making. But Sukuna is also a strong character in his own right. I would have thought that the one character that can match him verbally would have been Sukuna. But no, he doesn't. When Gojo says to Sukuna that he is like a lost alien, Sukuna just smiles. Now, I know it makes him look like he doesn't care what Gojo says, which is true. I'm sure he could care less what Gojo says about him, but I feel this isn't his character. Even the chapter where Gojo got released in chapter 221, Gojo was taking the piss out of Sukuna there as well, saying that he ran away from Yuji, and how can the great Sukuna be taking orders from someone like Kenjaku? And Sukuna doesn't say anything back. A lot of you guys might disagree with me, but I feel this is very out of character from Sukuna's end. Throughout the entire story, whenever we saw Sukuna go up against anyone, especially when he was inside of Yuji's body mainly, this guy was laughing like an absolute madman and taking the piss out of all of his opponents. The Cursed Room, Jogo, hell, even Mahoraga to an extent. He still had that cocky smile to his face, even up against Mahoraga. That infamous moment when Junpei's body was transformed into a transfigured human and Yuji was asking Sukuna for help, and Sukuna point blank refused Yuji's request and was laughing at him non-stop at the top of his lungs. That's the true personality of Sukuna. In simple terms, the guy is a troll. Look at chapter 116 when he's fighting Jogo. He tells Jogo to be proud and that he is strong, but then kills him straight away after that. You would think Sukuna wouldn't mind having someone like Jogo as an underling, considering he literally called him strong, but no, he kills him without hesitation. That is Sukuna. He messes with your mind and loves to toy with you mentally. The fight against the Curse Room, Sukuna is trolling the curse and was laughing at him throughout the whole fight. And a few episodes later, Gojo does the same thing to Jogo. Gojo is a cocky guy, but so is Sukuna. If Gojo is bantering Sukuna, Sukuna should also dish the banter back to Gojo. The whole story, we had Sukuna banter every character he faced off against. He even stopped himself from killing Mahito solely because him and Mahito shared a moment where they both laughed at Yuji. This is what I'm talking about. Whereas this character gone, and guys, you can't use the excuse of, oh, he was just laughing at characters who were weaker than him, that's why he was acting all cocky. No, I'm not having that excuse, because as soon as Gojo got released and was about to use Limitless against Kenjaku, Sukuna jumped in straight away to block him. If he was so scared, would he have blocked Gojo's attack? He was ready to fight Gojo right there. It was Kenjaku who told him to wait and that he had a promise to keep before fighting him. Otherwise, we probably would have had the fight happen from that very chapter. So yeah guys, I'm not having that excuse. If he was confident enough to fight Gojo right there, then that means he was confident enough to beat Gojo as well. I feel both versions of Sukuna are two completely different characters. The one with Yuji has the charisma and that agent of chaos feel to him. Anything can happen with him on screen because, like I said before, it's like a ticking time bomb. Whereas him inside of Megumi's body is a lot more mellowed out. And he doesn't have that quick wit and charm that he had when he was inside of Yuji's body. Sukuna loves to torment people with his words, along with his actions, which is why him not saying anything back against Gojo really puts me back. I personally want Gojo to lose because I feel the stakes would be so much greater if Sukuna did end up beating him. But if Sukuna does lose, with all the fraud allegations already against his name, plus his actual personality, I believe not being there fully to make the fight more entertaining, is a tragedy to the character. But that's enough from me. Let me go back to you guys. Which version of Sukuna do you prefer? And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.